Watch this.
Ahead on this Wednesday edition of the 208, we are diving into claims. And one up north is a strange story about a very serious accusation. Yeah, it roots back to TikTok. You're going to want to hear these details for yourself ahead. Idaho lawmakers celebrated property tax relief this past legislative session, and now Governor Little says he has found some more. But regardless of the claims, what do the dollars into developments mean for your property tax bill? People around here, they just drive too fast. Sound like you? Well, maybe you need a speed bump in your town. In one Treasure Valley area, that process is now much easier. Hector Mendoza joins the 208 to fill us in. Welcome to the 208. I'm Joe Paris. Brian Holmes is off. We'll start with this. Something strange. We don't always report on crime, but this one is a bit unique. We just had to share it with you. It has to do with the 4 University of Idaho students stabbed to death in their off-campus house last November. But this has nothing to do with Bryan Kohberger, the man accused of the killings. Rather, a case that wasn't in the limelight. We mentioned it back in December when there was no suspect for the case, and there was a lot of national speculation around the murders. At the time, a Texas-based TikTok personality, Ashley Gouliard, she accused the University of Idaho professor Rebecca Schofield publicly of committing the murders to cover up a student-teacher affair, and she did it all publicly on all of her TikTok account. Got millions of views. A lot of people saw this and sent us messages about it. So the professor, she sued for defamation. Then on July 10th, Gouliard actually filed multiple counterclaims against the U of I professor. Gouliard, who is representing herself, said that she used her spiritual and investigative techniques to come to her conclusion. She's still standing by those claims, even though police have already arrested 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger for the killings. She says in her counterclaim, quote, "Since the accusations in Ashley Gouliard's TikTok videos are substantially true, there is no actionable claim for defamation, and that she is the victim of defamation in all of this." She says plaintiff's claims are barred by fraud because they're false, perjurious, frivolous, and claimed with malice to get away with unethical conduct, adultery, and murder. Schofield's attorneys are asking a judge to dismiss the counterclaims because they say they have no merit or basis. Real quick, we wanted to circle back to a story that Brian brought you yesterday. The Biden administration is looking to expand HIPAA protections on the topic of abortion and transgender care. Supporters say it's about privacy. Critics say it's an overreach of the Biden administration to shield people getting legal abortions or transgender care out of state for legal ramifications in their home state. Basically, if someone went out of state to where they got an abortion and it wasn't legal in their state, you understand. Now, there are 19 Republican attorneys general that are asking for a change to be withdrawn to the HIPAA policy. Idaho Attorney General Raul Labrador is one of those 19. And we reached out for comment, and we got that after the show yesterday. So here's what Labrador's office has to say in part, saying, quote, "The Biden administration has pushed a false narrative that states are seeking to treat pregnant women as criminals or punish medical personnel who provide life-saving care. And your questions reflect that you have only read the talking points from the left and not the actual letter." Statement goes on to say, simply put, the United States Department of Health and Human Services proposed rule would defy HIPAA, unhinge our constitutional system, and violate the Administrative Procedures Act. We have news for Idahoans all over this great state. There is more property tax relief coming. That's right. Governor Brad Little announced earlier that Idaho ended the fiscal year back on June 30th with a major surplus. So, per legislation passed this year, that surplus is going to go directly to helping Idahoans. It's great news, right? Well, that is for you to decide. But I know the question at home is, great, what does this mean for my property tax relief bill at home? Well, it's not a simple answer. Governor Little says, depends on where you live. As communities across Idaho see rapid growth, there has also been rapid growth in property tax bills. Yes, the people who call the Gem State home have called on legislative and state leaders to do something. An answer to that call came in the thick of the legislative session. Lawmakers passed House Bill 292, a bill that sends government dollars throughout Idaho to help chip away at property taxes. If you check the fiscal filing, there's a multi-year projection on the assistance House Bill 292 will provide. A minimum of $205 million will go out in year one, where we are now. Year two, next year, a minimum of $122.5 million. In year three, a minimum of $182.4 million. There's also room for those numbers to go up depending on a few factors. One of those factors for the current year was announced today.
We've got a surplus.
You heard the governor, a surplus, which means about $100 million is going to go to a cause.
It's obvious that we need to do something on property tax.
That $100 million addition to property tax relief creates a grand total of about $300 million for the year. Yes, Governor Little signed the huge check. It's a large check physically. The amounts, never mind. Anyway, so what does this mean for Idahoans? Well, how does this move cut down your property tax bill? Well,
The short answer is not easy.
property taxes, as you probably know, never are. But House Speaker Mike Moyle has his signature explanation queued up to help explain. Mr. Speaker?
The state of Idaho collects no property taxes, and the state of Idaho spends no property taxes. That's all done at the local level. And in the next couple of weeks, you're going to see all these budget hearings by these locally elected officials setting those budgets. And if they are not careful with their budget decisions, they can suck up a lot of that the taxpayers won't see. So if you saw your tax assessment notices this year, they gave you a number and a date when those hearings were going to happen. And I would encourage people to get there because we don't collect them, we don't spend them. Those are all locally made decisions.
Governor Little adds there are other factors that contribute as well.
It's all relative to the taxing district you're in, what taxes you're to, what levies and bonds, new ones are coming on, and what old ones are going off.
There is a basic forecast that leaders were able to share today in terms of the actual difference this will make for your pocketbook. Senator Doug Ricks, take it away.
A lot of the numbers come back. The estimated what we're figuring is hopefully around 10 to 13%. But there is, like what was mentioned, a variation on that. So we're hoping that that comes true, and we're hoping that cities and counties don't raise their budgets and consume all that over the next few years.
So there you have it. Time will tell. But yes, get involved in your local government, your local taxing districts, a lot going on in your neighborhood. And I will say this, final numbers for you, they'll come in the mail coming up this fall. People in neighborhood associations in Ada County looking to slow down vehicles in their area, well, they now have a simpler way to go about it. Back in June, the Ada County Highway District Commission voted in favor of an interim traffic claiming policy that makes it easier to request speed mitigation structures like speed bumps and speed humps. But how does the new policy actually make things easier? Our Hector Mendoza reports.
I swear it'd be 55 or 60 miles an hour.
Aaron Olson, who has lived on Catalpa Drive about 7 years, moved into the area before these speed humps were added.
They would really rev it up and cut down the street. It was insane sometimes.
And he says that the neighbors were fed up.
All the neighbors had extra signs for the speed limit, trying to remind people. You know, you'd see people shaking their fists.
Not only that,
There was even a father and son with a radar gun who would camp out about halfway down the street just to try and convince the city to do something about these people going down the street.
so the neighbors went through a long process to get the speed humps installed along this road. And Olson says it's been night and day.
The way that it improved the neighborhood, it feels totally different here. I mean, you can see as people go by, like, they really are going 25.
The wait was worth it. And HCHD says they have a new policy that will make it easier for people to request and potentially get a speed bump or speed hump in their neighborhood. But before this new policy, individuals had to collect data to prove excessive traffic speed, traffic volume, and do a cut-through study.
To see how many vehicles were actually just cutting through the neighborhood, and it wasn't just, you know, your local residents.
Now, if there wasn't a lot of cut-through, the neighborhood would have to pay for the traffic calming feature. But with the new interim policy the commission passed,
We don't do that cut-through study anymore, and ultimately ACHD pays for the improvements. We recognize that if they're speeding in a neighborhood, they're speeding regardless of who it is, and it's important to try and address that and address safety in the neighborhood.
not only that, but requesters will only have to prove either excessive speed or traffic volume, not both, shortening the process.
Yeah, it definitely shortens up the process, and a cut-through study was really time-intensive too for ACHD staff, and so it does shorten up that process, makes it a little bit easier.
So the ultimate goal for HCHD is safety.
People need to feel comfortable on their street, especially when you have the opportunity for children to walk out and play in the street. You really want to make sure that people are going the speed limit that's there.
It feels a lot more like a neighborhood and less like a thoroughfare. So yeah, it's calming, peaceful, it's great. I love the speed bumps.
ACHD told me normally it's a 6-month to a year process to make the request and get the appropriate amount of signatures for the petition. Then it needs to get sent. And getting the signatures is the longest part of the request. But with this new policy, they see the process taking significantly less time. HHD also mentioned that they are looking at making a process even easier, including dropping the petition threshold from 75% of signatures to maybe 60%. They're also planning on doing public outreach in the coming weeks, and they plan to release or kind of get public opinion about that and hopefully have something a little more permanent. Permanent coming into August.
You know what's interesting is you hear people talk about this all the time. Like people in my neighborhood, they drive too fast. Does ACHD have a number of like how many requests they get from people for more speed bumps?
Yeah, they mentioned that they get about 100 a year. Out of those 125 actually kind of get the requirement and meet that requirement to kind of go into the next steps. But then with the petitions and everything, like I mentioned, it's hard to kind of get 75% of those people to kind of sign. So a lot of them don't even really go through the next steps and actually get into actually installing them. So it's kind of hard on that sense. So hopefully this thing kind of makes it a little easier.
And we know even with the new rules, the new program here, you know, there's no guarantee that if you put in an application, you're going to get one. But the gentleman you spoke with today, I mean, they must be pretty happy with this new process.
Right. He mentioned that he was there, and about a year later, it kind of came to fruition. They got that speed bump there. And speaking to a lot of other people in the neighborhoods, they were just as excited. I mean, at first it was a little hectic, but you know, things kind of slowed things down, and so people were excited.
One neighborhood at a time. All right, Hector Mendoza, his 208 debut. You're going to see him a lot around here on 7. Hector, thanks so much. A few months back, we brought you the story of Franklin Bus Hudson, the rodeo star and World War II veteran turned 100 years old back on April 25th, and we were there for his birthday party. According to the National World War II Museum, we lose 180 veterans of that war every single day. And sadly, this past Monday, on July 17th, Bus became one of those veterans, just under 2 months after his 100th birthday. To celebrate Bus's life, we're going to show you how we celebrated with him back in April.
A Tuesday in April.
You're the star of the show.
Isn't usually a day that stands out for a lot of people.
Okay, tuck it in the back.
Unless that person...
Your hands are cold.
No, they're not.
...is a veteran.
Okay, gotcha.
And that day...
Come in, come in.
April 25th...
Hey, birthday boy.
...is his 100th birthday.
How do I feel? I feel good.
Franklin Bus Hudson
Yeah, I feel good.
is getting a lot of visitors today.
Glad we could come celebrate your birthday today.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I
Dad,
remember
this
you
is
now.
Tim, the chaplain.
We brought you some chocolate cake.
Bus may be slow to get around these days,
Why is everybody coming here?
but still quick with a joke.
It's my 54th birthday. We're celebrating, can't you understand?
It's that sense of humor and good looks
He's handsome,
that charmed his wife Louise 72 years ago.
a great kisser. What else do you want to know?
Maybe a little about his military service. Born on the plains of West Texas,
The doctor came all the way out there to deliver me, and I think he was in a buggy.
Bus followed his brothers into the Army in World War II.
I was a cowboy in an Army uniform, but I'll tell you one thing, I was a damn good soldier.
His first brush with danger came on the trip across the Atlantic as his ship dodged depth charges and icebergs.
And it's going up this way and then coming down and going up this way. And the water would be up here. Next thing you know, the water would be down there. I never will forget that night. I thought we was going to freeze to death.
Bus's European tour began in France and continued northeast.
I was with Patton's Third Army over in Germany. I was a tank commander, and I didn't even know what I was doing. I thought, well, if I stay here long enough, I'll figure it out, you know, but
Bus remembers having to figure out how to follow the infantry into a town one morning on a road too narrow for tanks.
came back up. I said, okay, James, put it in low gear and get through this hole. And so I meant for him to just tear the front of the building off, but I said, okay, everybody button up, you know, and wham, bam, bang. And I was looking around that whole damn building, fell down.
Bus returned to Texas at the end of the war to tend to his horses. A rodeo brought him to Boise the first time in 1957, and he returned for good in 1976, buying a 17-acre ranch in Eagle.
I mostly fooled with horses, training horses, roping, rodeo, and everything. And I just more or less played for a living.
And raised a family, which now extends
That's my baby boy.
to 4 generations.
I haven't seen you in so long.
It was a run that went faster than Bus expected.
You know, they say that time really flies when you're having fun. We must have had a hell of a lot of fun because time sure got away with us. It sneaked up on us, you know. And next thing you know, we're old.
But still living.
I'm deaf, I can't hear, I'm blind as a bat.
Like he's 90.
But thank God I still got my driver's license.
His family tells us that sometimes he still used that driver's license, and we found out about his passing, Bus's passing from his daughter Amy earlier. She texted us saying in part, quote, "He took a huge piece of our heart with him when he left us. Dad was a life well lived, and he was able to have his very last wish on this earth granted, in that he was able to be carried out of his own home and away from his ranch feet first. His wonderful hospice group provided a dressed uniformed Marine to salute his flag-draped body with the solemn playing of taps upon the leaving of his home." She goes on to say, quote, "We appreciate so much everyone's continued love and prayers, for we have been able to feel them. Rest well, bright soldier, cowboy, hero, for all your battles are now behind you and all your chores on earth are done." Well, rest in peace, Bus. We are honored to have known you.
everyone. I am live in downtown Boise right now at the Boise Center. Alive After 5 has just fired up behind me down here this evening to help promote a really cool event they do here at Alive After 5 called Tips for Charity. It's really easy, one of the easiest ways I've heard of to support a local nonprofit. You just buy a beer or a cold beverage at the tent here, and any tip that you leave goes to benefit a great nonprofit. Tonight it is Catch, which is a Treasure Valley organization that helps families experiencing homelessness get on their feet, offers them assistance, which is especially important when we have elements like this out here. It's blazing hot today. If you do come down, be ready for those cold beverages. Lots of water should be mixed in there as well, as we are near 100 degrees in Boise right now. So let's talk about your weather. Get to your weather headlines. If you've looked out far on the horizon today, you probably noticed some haze out there, some patchy smoke. That's because of that wildfire that is burning near Ola in Gem County. So some of that smoke has trickled in. It may stick around until tomorrow morning, and then skies should clear out after that as we have that dry southwest flow that will really intensify. That will take us into the triple digits for the rest of the week and into the weekend. And we have a streak, maybe 6 days in a row of those triple digit temperatures. So look at our current conditions. It is hot, like I said, here in Boise, flirting with 100 degrees across most of the Treasure Valley. I do think we'll see the century mark in many of our valley locations. McCall, Sun Valley, those low to even upper 80s today, and we'll tack on a few more degrees tomorrow. So as we look at our satellite radar picture, there is a little bit of moisture down to our south. It's that monsoonal moisture as it crosses into southern Idaho. Could trigger a couple of isolated thunderstorms, sending some gusty winds through the Magic Valley. Likely no real impact on the Treasure Valley. So even bigger picture as we pull out a little wider now to our northwest view, you can see weather is very quiet. So we'll have lots of sunshine in the coming days, and the ridge of high pressure to our south will really start to build and amplify from south to north, and we get that hot air being drawn up from the desert southwest. So look at our temperatures for tomorrow as we flip over to our Thursday. Generally 102 to 104 in the Treasure Valley, mid to upper 80s to 90 degrees in the mountains, and mid 90s in the Magic Valley with lots of sunshine. Another scorcher coming our way tomorrow. As we flip over to the 7-day for our mountains, you can see beating the heat, normally heading up in elevation is the way to go. It'll still be by this weekend in the mid 90s in places like McCall. Those are Boise's typical daytime highs, but still, as we look now at the 7-day forecast for the Treasure Valley, that is relief, mid-90s compared to what's coming our way for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday into Monday. 105 on Saturday is the peak of that heat. Regardless, 102 to 104 is still blazing hot. So use all the precautions if you do have outdoor plans. And if you do plan to come down to Alive After 5, remember, tip big. All your tips tonight go to charity to benefit Catch right here in the Treasure Valley.
All right, let's finish up the 208. First things first, happy 58th birthday to Dave Johnson, a loyal 208 viewer. Your kids emailed us asking for a shout out, so there you go. All right, let's get to the comment, Tron. Justin, this person says, property tax relief. Twin Falls County must have spent that money on something else. Our taxes went to $600 last year. Ray and Kimberly, hopefully that goes down with this new property tax relief. A lot of stuff going in. This person says, I don't think the chicanes are going to work. I live just off Kootenai. People are really curious about how these different traffic mitigation things will work. And this person says, just wanted to say welcome to Hector. He did a great job. Yes, Hector is here at Channel 7. We're glad to have him on the 208. Follow him on Twitter at Hector Reporting.